Imagine a ritual so powerful that 96 of the top 100 most watched events in a decade are just variations of it. A ritual where we watch highly specialized athletes engage in what is essentially a series of high-speed car crashes separated by long periods of standing around. Most people see a game, but cultural critic Chuck Klosterman sees a hyperobject, something so vast, intertwined with war, television, masculinity, and the very concept of American identity that we can no longer see where the sport ends and where reality begins. But here's the terrifying part. It might all be over sooner than you think. Before we dive into the fascinating, weird, and slightly dark world of Klosterman's football, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Here at In a Nutshell, we break down the biggest ideas so you can understand the world one chapter at a time. Now, let's go deep. Chapter 1. The Television Miracle. Klosterman's first major thesis is that football, as we know it, doesn't actually exist on grass, it exists on glass. In 1958, the NFL championship between the Colts and the Giants changed everything. Not because of the score, but because 45 million people watched it from their living rooms. Klosterman argues that football is the only sport that is objectively better on TV than in person. In person, the field is too big, the players are too far, and you can't see the violence clearly. But on TV, the camera follows the ball, it zooms in on the pain, it gives us the intensity and the nothingness. Klosterman compares the structure of football to the philosophy of Jean-Paul Sartre. There are 11 minutes of actual action in a 3-hour broadcast. The rest, it's the nothingness. But that nothingness is where the magic happens. It's where we talk, where we check our bets, and where the commentators build a narrative that turns a game into a myth. Football isn't a sport. It's the greatest television product ever manufactured. Chapter 2. Simulated War and the Proving Ground. Why do we love the violence? Klosterman doesn't shy away from the dark stuff. He calls football a simulation of warfare. Unlike baseball, which is about going home, or basketball, which is about fluidity and grace, football is about territory. It's about 11 men trying to move an object through an opposing force by any means necessary. Klosterman notes that we value courage in football more than in any other sport, because the risk is tangible. When a quarterback stands in the pocket while a 300-pound lineman sprints at his head, we aren't just watching a play, we are watching a human demonstrate a version of bravery that is increasingly rare in our sanitized corporate lives. But there's a catch. This war is managed by an uncompromising head coach, an archetype Klosterman dissects as a secular priest or a mid-century CEO. These coaches demand total submission to the system. It's a paradox. We celebrate the courage of the individual, but only within a system of absolute, almost authoritarian control.
Chapter 3. The Hyperobject and the Mirror.
This is where the nutshell gets complicated. Klosterman argues that football has become a hyper-object. Because it's so big, it has to reflect everything. Race. He looks at how the league handled Colin Kaepernick, not as a political debate, but as a symptom of how football tries to edit reality to keep everyone watching. Economics. He explores why we call it football while the rest of the world calls theirs football and we call theirs soccer. His conclusion? It's an inverted socio-economic logic that reveals our need to be different, even if it makes no sense. Identity, whether it's America's team, the Cowboys, or a 6-man high school team in rural North Dakota, football provides a shared mental context. It's the last place where a CEO and a construction worker can have a 20-minute conversation where they both know exactly what they're talking about. Chapter 4. The Extinction Event. Now for the most controversial part of Klosterman's work. He predicts that football is doomed. He doesn't think it will be banned. He thinks it will go the way of horse racing. 100 years ago, horse racing was the biggest sport in America. Why? Because everyone had a personal connection to horses. They were in the streets. They were the engines of life. When the car replaced the horse, that connection died. Fandom became a niche interest for gamblers and the elite. Klosterman sees the same thing happening to football. Youth participation. Fewer kids are playing tackle football due to head trauma, CTE concerns. If you don't play as a kid, your visceral connection to the game weakens. The media bubble. As the NFL demands more money for broadcast rights, advertisers are starting to blink. If the TV miracle becomes too expensive to produce, the myth starts to crumble. The loss of the monoculture. We live in a world of personalized algorithms. Football is the last big thing we all watch at the same time. But as we drift further into our own digital silos, the social pressure to care about the Super Bowl is evaporating. Klosterman gives it 60 to 70 years. He imagines a future where our grandkids look at a football helmet the way we look at a suit of armor, a strange, brutal relic of a less enlightened era. The conclusion. Why do we still watch? Because, as he admits, sports are the closest thing to truth we have left. In a world of fake news and subjective reality, you either catch the ball or you don't. You either win or you lose. There is a brutal, beautiful clarity in the final score that you can't find in politics or art. We watch football because it allows us to borrow absolutes for a few hours. We watch it because for 11 minutes of action, everything makes sense. What do you think? Is football truly too big to fail? Or are we watching the slow-motion decline of America's last great monoculture? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this decortication, hit the like button and share it with your favorite armchair quarterback. For more summaries that get to the core of the world's biggest ideas, subscribe to In a Nutshell. I'll see you in the next one.